Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to this breakout session on Smarter Europe, Smart Specialisation Strategies, chaired by Cristian Bușoi, MEP, Chair of the European Parliament's Industry, Research and Energy Committee. Unfortunately, Mr. Bușoi can't be with us physically here today. He has joined us remotely. So he's going to run the first part of this session and then I'll take over a little bit later. But before I hand to Mr. Bușoi, just a little bit of housekeeping. Interpretation, English is on channel 1 and French is on channel 2. Just 2 languages available in the breakouts. If you have a question for our panel, as in the plenaries, if you're in the room, you can raise your hand and somebody will bring a microphone to you. Or if you're watching online, or indeed you're shy and prefer to write your question, you can use slido.com, #Cohesion Forum, and then click on the name of this session. And as before, my only plea is that you are brief, and it would be great if you could tell me who you are and which organization you're from. If you have a comment, you can also post it on slido.com. I'm very happy to hear your expertise, your knowledge and experience. But again, please be as brief as possible so I can see at a glance what your point is, or if it's a question, who it's for. So I'm now going to hand over to Cristian, who will open the session and introduce our speakers. And I hope he will make some opening remarks. They're all going to make some opening remarks. And then we'll launch the discussion. Hope I'll hear from all of you later. Cristian, very good to have you with us, albeit remotely. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Thank you so much. And I'm really sad that I cannot be in Brussels anymore, but happy to be part of this extraordinary event, extraordinary initiative. That's why I would like to start by thanking Commissioner Ferreira for the invitation to be here today, and also to chair this specialized breakout session on how to reach a smarter Europe. Regional economies differ considerably in their innovation capacity. Until now, we could say that only a few EU regions have very well-performing innovation systems. So it is very important to increase our region's involvement and innovation capacity. Smart specialization strategies enables each region to identify and develop its own competitive advantages. It brings together local authorities, academia, business and civil society, working for the implementation of long-term growth strategies supported by European Union funds. Smart specialization, what we will discuss in this session, has focused cohesion resources in areas of research and innovation that have the greatest potential to contribute to the development of the regions. In the previous programming period, 2014-2020, around 40 billion of cohesion funding was dedicated to research and innovation investments. Smart specialization strategies have made decision-making process more inclusive and relevant to stakeholders. For example, the entrepreneurial discovery process is at the heart of a development of each smart specialization strategy. This is an inclusive and interactive process in which relevant stakeholders, such as the research community, private sector, public sector, and civil society organizations, identify new and potential smart strategy priorities and inform the government. Smart specialization will build on first round of strategies from 2014-2020 and play an important role in achieving recovery also. It will continue supporting research and innovation to ensure sustainable and resilient development of all regions in Europe over this programming period. In particular, the structuring role of smart specialization is more important than even before, given the large-scale EU investments combining the national recovery and resilience plans with the new EU programs of ERDF and Horizon Europe. Therefore, the topic today is interesting, and I am sure that there will be many interesting things to be discussed today. I know that Jackie will make the second part as interactive as possible, but first, of course, I would kindly invite our distinguished guests to have their initial statement, initial presentation, and of course, then we'll engage with the audience, and we will have a more interactive debate. I'm very happy to welcome here with us this afternoon Mrs. Veronica Remisova, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Investment, Regional Development and Informatization in Slovakia, Mr. Stefano Bonaccini, President of the Emilia-Romagna Regional Government in Italy, of course, Dr. Antti Vasara, President and CEO of VTT Research since 2015, and also the President of EARTO, European Association of Research and Technology Organizations, and non-executive director of Elisa OE, the largest communications operator in Finland. And of course, Mrs. Cristina Fanjul, Director of CA Asturias, Incubator and Accelerator of Startups and Technology-based companies, and an outstanding agent of the innovation ecosystem of the Spanish region of Asturias. Mrs. Fanjul is also expert and evaluator of flagship initiatives under the European policies and programs as the European Innovation Council, AIC Accelerator, Women Tech EU, Horizon Europe, and other very important programs. But as I have in my speaking notes, I will start, of course, with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Investment, Regional Development and Informatization in Slovakia, Mrs. Veronica Remisova.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. First of all, let me start by expressing my solidarity to Ukraine, to our Ukrainian friends and partners who are in very difficult situation. And when we speak of cohesion and when we speak of solidarity, we must think also on Ukraine, our eastern neighbor. And in the long term, it is utmostly important that the Ukraine will be integrated into the European space where it belongs. Research and innovation. So we are now, these 2 years have been the 2 years of crisis. First of all, there was a coronavirus crisis. Now we are facing geopolitical crisis, war in Ukraine. And what is essential in the time of crisis is that people come out with new solutions to a new challenges, and therefore innovation is very important, especially in hard, difficult times. Research and innovation have proven to be an essential part of the EU coordinated response to the COVID crisis, and also will be vital to support a sustainable and inclusive recovery of Europe. In research and development and innovation, what was instrumental, it was a rapid response to the problems in some of the sectors and industries hit by pandemics. I will mention the most visible areas such as the digitalization, automatization of business services, change of business models, technical and technological solutions to minimize constraints, and also the way of communicating with customers. When we speak about Europe and European innovation, I will start maybe by good news. In the European Union since 2012, the EU innovation performance has increased on average by 8.9%. In some countries it was more, in some other countries it was less. But over the period 2014 and 2020, EU member states have managed to raise their share of R&D spending from 2.1 of GDP to 2.3 of GDP. But we have to say that this is still considerably lower in comparison to world powers such as Japan or United States, which are our main competitors. In particular, the European Union lags far behind in corporate R&D investments, where it's low at 1.3% compared to 2.2% in the US and 2.6% in Japan and 3.3% in South Korea. So this is something we in the European Union, we really have to improve. As far as the smart specialization strategy are concerned, I think for this programming period 2014-2020, it was very important that I would say the creative pressure came from down, from bottom up. In Slovakia, we implemented the principle of smart cities and creative innovative regions. We are now developing the regional innovation strategies in order to boost innovation within the regions. I would maybe stop here. Just then we can continue developing some other points, considering what is important or what do we have to boost within the regional and administrative processes, or how to better support innovation within the regions. But just at the beginning, my main message is that, especially within the time of crisis, innovation and investment in innovation are very important. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Remisova. Thank you also for reminding what we all feeling, our deep concern about what is happening in Ukraine, and our commitment to help Ukraine and Ukrainian people to win this very difficult battle, and we are all together with them. Also, to remind us the importance of innovation during the pandemics, and especially in the digitalization area, but not only, to put EU in the global perspective and remind that we are in competition with our main strategic partner, United States, with other partners like Japan, South Korea, but of course, we need to invest more and to remain very competitive. And of course, the need to go towards smart cities, which is extremely important also for the competitiveness of our industries. And in the committee that I'm chairing, we discuss a lot about these aspects. Thank you. And of course, I'm sure that many questions will come later to you. And I go directly now to the president of one of the most important regions in Italy, but also one of the most important regions in Europe, the president of the Emilia-Romagna regional government in Italy, Mr. Stefano Bonaccini.
Dear colleagues, European societies are going through a period of profound societal and economic and technological changes. Digitalisation and innovation will be absolutely key for many European regions to catch up and for helping transition regions out of the development trap. The digital transition is not an end in itself, but it's instrumental to reach European cohesion, main objectives of social, economical, and territorial cohesion. Innovation and digitalization can also support our cities and territories in fighting climate change and finding solutions to climate adaptation. However, the current situation and the war that Russia has launched on Ukraine should also remind us on the potential vulnerability of our IT systems. Today, municipalities, hospitals, or public water companies can become targets of cyber attacks, putting essential needs and services at risk for the inhabitants. At high level of information security and respect for privacy are also increasingly important themes for building trust between the citizens, the businesses, and the local and regional governments. That is why European autonomy is also about being more independent and in the development of our digital solutions. This is the approach we are following in my region, Emilia-Romagna. As an example, the new data center of the European Center of Medium-Range Weather Forecast is opening in Bologna, aiming at going further in predictability of weather events. This innovative, forward-looking project is also one of urban regeneration, as a former tobacco factory will be transformed in one of world's most powerful supercomputing facilities. Local and regional governments are key players to stimulate economic growth and job creation at the local level by creating and supporting innovation labs, startups, and incubators. But it's important not to create an additional digitalization gap among the population. It should not become a barrier for citizens to access services. Being the government level closest to citizens, municipalities, and regions can also play a role in supporting digital literacy and ensuring support for the population who still lack access to digital tools or skills. The concept of a smart cities offers enormous opportunities for a triple gain if we ensure involvement of citizens. By targeting social cohesion, smart cities can improve the quality of life citizens, increase the competitiveness of our economies, and pave the way for a sustainable low-carbon economy. Providing better access and better use of information and communication technologies, fostering digital innovation and developing new skills are all crucial measures to help achieve the global sustainability development goals. But achieving this requires investment from the public and the private sector, and especially to find solutions to market failure in the more remote and rural areas to ensure no one is left behind in the access to high-speed broadband. I also wanted to highlight that local authorities often develop ICT solutions that could be useful to many other European municipalities or regions, even from different countries. The coordination and effective dissemination of information is valuable to avoid reinventing the wheel. That is why collaboration with other regions of Europe is extremely needed to improve efficiency in the use of resources. European territorial cooperation can support these exchanges of experience, knowledge, and know-how. But national association of European networks also have a key role to play here. Finally, digital tools can also help our local and regional administration in the strategic planning of integrated and sustainable development. The Council of European Municipalities and Regions is promoting to this effect the reference framework for sustainable cities, a free online toolkit that can help a municipality, city or region to self-assess its urban development strategies and how it aligns with our common development frameworks such as the Sustainable Development Goals or the new Leipzig Charter. We have a great opportunity. The Next Generation EU funds, where ecological and digital transition are the pillars of a new strategic plan of resources 2021-2027. We are experiencing tragic times due to an unjustified and unjustifiable war, but those who produced it didn't consider the strengths of our values: freedom, peace, and democracy. Let's do it.
Thank you so much, President Bonaccini. Thank you for reminding us that we are now during very deep technological changes, that we need to be part of this change and to take benefit for our citizens and our enterprises. Also that we have now the twin transition, and our digital solutions could also help us to fight climate change and reach Green Deal objectives. And also I'd like to congratulate you for supporting in your region not only investments like innovation labs, startups, and also in SMEs, but also efforts to increase the digital literacy and skills of citizens. Extremely important to be better prepared for the challenges of the future. We go now to Dr. Antti Vasara, as I said, the President and CEO of VTT Research, but also President of RTO. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and very good afternoon also from me. I bring the viewpoint from the research and innovation community here, or at least one part of that. And we, of course, see the smart specialization strategies as extremely crucial for Europe, and we have seen that how they have increased tremendously this amount of strategic research being done and also innovation in the different European regions. Also, what has been excellent is that the smart specialization strategies have a long-term time span, and this has empowered and encouraged regional innovation stakeholders to both develop action plans in collaboration, but also work together towards common goals. And what has also been excellent is that this has really increased the dialogue and also mutual understanding among the different parties, regional policymakers, stakeholders, universities, companies, and research and technology organizations, also known as RTOs, that I represent here. Few words about RTOs. So as we are not necessarily always that well known across Europe, but RTOs like TNO in the Netherlands or Tecnalia in Spain or VTT in Finland, we have a public mission, and our job is to bring science and technology to, on one hand, serve the innovation needs of public bodies and industry, and also, equally importantly, improve quality of life and build European economic competitiveness. And now, of course, green transition and digital transition, the twin transition, are very much on our work agenda, but also now building resilience in Europe. And maybe that's the third transition, so that maybe we should be talking about the tri-transition in future. The way that RTOs contribute is also in smart specialization strategies is that we are enablers in the innovation ecosystems, because we have, of course, the competencies, the research competencies, but we also operate open access research and technology infrastructures. And this combination means that since it's available to both large companies and SMEs, that those companies can have access to skills, technologies, and facilities that they wouldn't be able to afford on their own. And that, of course, has a tremendous contribution then into both how they can work in the pre-commercial phase, but also helps them speed up the scale up of bringing innovations into commercial scale. Now, regions in the future need to strengthen their role as facilitators and integrators of all the actors in the innovation ecosystems. And regions need increasingly the competencies, of course, from all research actors, but also RTOs as key collaboration partners. And it's not only for the technical competencies, but also since many of the RTOs, or most of the RTOs, work with the companies, then that also for the skills that they bring in terms of market and economic competencies to consider that what opportunities are and limitations, and as well as take into account the conditions that how to contribute to policy objectives. There are two things that I would like to highlight that where we need to, going forward, be mindful. First is that we still think that the strategic importance of technology infrastructures, in addition to research infrastructures that academic institutions run, and then test beds that are closer to commercial application, the technology infrastructure importance has not sufficiently been recognized in regional policies yet. Of course, there are exceptions, but there's still a gap. And this is something that we hope that will be addressed. The second point is then that in the harmonization and simplification of the funding conditions, the national programs in the Regional Development Fund, but also in the Interregional Innovation Investments Program, the I3, the conditions are not necessarily favorable then to non-profit organizations like universities and RTOs, because in the Horizon Europe, the reimbursement rates are 100% of the eligible costs and not necessarily then in the regional ones, and that may then limit how we can participate and be then tools to use for the regional policies as well. But I'll finish here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vassara. Thank you for explaining a little bit more why smart specialization is crucial for European Union. Also, of course, it's very interesting to add a new pillar to the twin transition, the building resilience pillar. Of course, now the strong commitment is to have a Green Deal in place in 2050, and also to have, of course, the digitalization of our society and economy. But clearly, building resilience is extremely very important. I also plea for have the regions as facilitators and supporters for ecosystem innovation, and to have a better partnership with RTOs and of course with the universities and all innovation and research institutes. And you're right, we should look a little bit deeper in the future to recognize better in the cohesion funds RTOs, but also to look a little bit to the conditions for reimbursement. You mentioned Horizon Europe, a program very well known by me and my colleagues from Industry, Research and Energy Committee. We worked a lot on this program and we have great expectations. Could be also, of course, cohesion policy is a little bit different, but synergies, and sometimes Horizon Europe could be inspirational also for the cohesion programs. Thank you for that, and of course, I'm sure that some of your ideas will be developed a little bit later. But before going to the interactive part, of course, I will kindly invite Mrs. Cristina Fanjul, the director of CEEI Asturias, incubator and accelerator of startups and technology-based companies, and also expert in many programs that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, to take the floor for the initial comments.
Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the invitation. And I would like to bring to the discussion another important element, because today the panel is about the strategies, smart specialization strategies. But I would like to bring the point of view of a practitioners. So how to ensure that the strategies which are decided are not lost into translation when really implemented into the regions. Both for the experience you have mentioned, Cristian, thank you for the introduction. I work in a region of Spain called Asturias, Incubator Accelerator, but because also I'm the president, the proud president of a pan-European community of more than 150 centers, business innovation centers all around Europe, more than 35 countries. Our key words are innovation. We mentioned before the importance of the innovation, but also entrepreneurship. But in the end, in our day-to-day, the words, acceleration, entrepreneurship, spin-off, technology, innovation, investment round, unicorns are our day-to-day. But in the end, innovation, business innovation center were created for EU inspiration more than 25 years ago. And now we are speaking about, the close link between the cohesion and the innovation. But it was revolutionary 25 years ago when we decided that the model for innovation, it was a place-based policy for innovation in each of the territories. So it's important to bring here the point of view of some stakeholders who are the practitioners, who are the ones who put in reality every strategy that policymakers and all have in mind. Why is so important smart strategies? Because this process that you mentioned before, the entrepreneurial discovery process, this partnership, involves a lot of people who makes their own strategy, the common strategy. This is important because when implementing, you feel more this power. In the end, all the stakeholders, and especially the business innovation centers, just to give you an example, your network is also one of these one, have also international connections. And this is important because we see ourselves as this kind of blood vessels where the energy, where the talent of people has also brings links to the other environments, the international environment. So when talking about innovation and when talking about how can we really overcome the risk and the challenge of the innovation divide, it's important to take into account that interregional cooperation and international cooperation will also be in place. It's good to have this, let's say, first moment where the smart specialization strategy were, revolutionary in the sense that they are built on the strengths of the regions, which is good because sometimes we are so attached to the weaknesses. This is good because we are building on strengths. And for the first period, but it was revolutionary. Now we are more comfortable with these smart specialization strategies. And then is the moment to create the connection, to really create the value chains, the Europe value chains, to really overcome, the European fragmentation for innovation, which is so important. Because I'm speaking here for 26,000 companies, startups, for example. This is the figure that our network, the EBN network, has supported. How can unlock their potential? Only by the way of collaboration and integration into real more areas in Europe value chain. So the initiative you mentioned, the international investment instrument, is something very important because we need to build on regional, place-based approach companies, but then go to global because our challenges are global.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the point of view of practitioners and a very concrete angle. And of course, reminding us about the importance of acceleration, entrepreneurship, innovation in each of the territories. And of course, it's true. It's time now to create a connection and the value chain. And of course, to unlock the potential of not only the 26,000 startups that you are in direct contact with, but I'm sure hundreds of thousands of startups and SMEs, and their potential is immense. Cohesion funds and the smart specialization strategies could help a lot to unlock this potential. I would like to thank once again the four panelists. Very honored to chair this panel. A strong commitment on behalf of myself and my colleagues from ITRE committee to the cohesion policy in general, but also to the synergies with the research and innovation tools and the need to be in the forefront of the innovation efforts to support the enterprises, to support the initiatives, and to build the right partnerships. I kindly invite now, thanking a lot for helping and for being with us today, to Mrs. Jackie Davis to moderate the interactive part of this afternoon session. Thank you so much and a lot of success in your activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Cristian. And I know that you have to go and attend an important debate on Ukraine shortly, but we are grateful that you were able to join us. And also Stefano Bonaccini also has to leave us, has a plane to catch. Thank you very much indeed, Stefano, for your contribution. Great to have you all with us. Lots to discuss. And I would like to go back really to a point the Deputy Prime Minister made right at the beginning of your intervention when you said our innovation performance has improved, but you highlighted that it's still lower than many of our competitors. And we heard in our opening session today about a lot of countries, even middle-income countries, so least developed regions seem to be doing a lot better using cohesion policy, but middle-income countries getting caught in what the Commissioner Ferreira called a development trap, and to do with their innovative performance. What do you think is the key to why we have some regions that are stagnating, that are not meeting this innovation challenge, despite that overall improvement in performance. What's the challenge here?
I think what was very important is what was said by the colleague, that the revolutionary thing in cohesion policy, it was to include innovation in the cohesion policy. Because before, cohesion was the synonym for roads, water supply, or basic physical infrastructure. And then we said in the cohesion policy, the European Union, if you want progress and diminish the regional differences, then you need to be innovative. So this was really the important impetus within the cohesion policy. I can see it in Slovakia. We have a lot of regions who perform very well, and then the regions who just stay in the middle income trap. For example, in Košice region, which is the east region near the Ukrainian border, we have 3 excellent universities, technical universities focused on IT technology, digital technologies. And suddenly, in the eastern part, which was always very underdeveloped in Slovakia, from what you said, the cooperation between university, private, corporate, and the administration, suddenly there was a very interesting initiative created there, IT Volley. This is, for us, this is really quite best practice example.
What was the magic? What happened that made the difference?
University, so people, human potential, IT specialist, and then I would say the energy of the different stakeholders in the private companies. They said that let's do something there because we have a human capital. We should create ecosystem, innovative ecosystem, and then suddenly the international companies start coming there, and the big IT cluster developed there in the ecosystem.
And in the regions where you said you have some regions where it's not happening, why not? What is missing? And is it this? I want to come back to Christina's point about from strategies to action, if you like, a bit later. But what is missing in the regions where it's not happening? Same question based on your experience, Antti, and members of where it's working, where it isn't. But what's the key?
One element of the triangle is missing. So, for example, we have quite a very nice regions, mountainous region, Orava. But there is element of scientific university infrastructure which is missing there. So you should have all 3 elements. So university research, or at least research, private companies, and then the favorable administrative ecosystem, I would say.
And I'd like to come back on what that looks like a bit later on. But Antti, what's the key here to the regions that are doing this well? Is it really saying, not just talking the talk of smart specialization, but doing it? And then, Christine, I want to come to you because that was very much your point, I think.
Well, I don't claim that I know all the answers to that, but at least I know one success factor that I have seen in the regions where they really get it going is that they truly share a common goal. That I bet in your example from Košice that it's also then that the universities and companies and the local government, that they have shared a common goal, that they have figured out that this is what they want to achieve together. Because then, at least in all these collaborations, I think that the goals really have a magical power to get stuff done. Because then I think that there are many areas that where all the elements are in place, but everybody is executing their own plan, and then you don't get the benefit. If I may still add one more point to what you were asking in the beginning, Jackie, that kind of like that why are some regions stagnating? And I think that also in Europe we need to be thinking about that. There have been these areas that which have been blatantly obvious that we need to do something about them, but still it has been much more comfortable to continue on the old path and sort of do incremental improvements, and then when the crisis hits, then we are kind of like presented with the facts. We have known for a long time that we need to get away from the red energy and move to green energy, but still we haven't done it. Now we have to.
Interesting question for later about the link up between smart specialization strategies that have been developed since 2014. And now, with this focus on the green and the digital, are the smart really reflecting that? But I wanted to come back, Christina, to your point when you said the key thing is making sure that the strategy isn't lost in implementation. And do you think when we look across Europe and we look at what's happening in different regions, is part of the explanation where they might have a smart specialization strategy, but they're not, as we say, walking the walk?
Well, it's probably a kind of combination of a lot of elements. Normally, strategies are very good at paper, normally. Everything, it goes in the same matrix and so on. But the reality is the reality is complex, and there are a lot of elements who are sometimes out of our control. But in the end, a smart specialization strategy is good because it visibilizes, one goal for the region. And this is important for the ones who are acting, on the ground, because you have this mission, and you know where you are looking for. You have focus, and focus sometimes is everything. But let me also introduce another thing, because what we are doesn't really influence in 100% what we want to be in the future. So there's a certain element of aspiration and inspiration between the strategy who should be in place. Because sometimes, the market failures or, the inertia when doing things, it's very, it's very complex, it's very hard to really overcome. And now that the pandemic has, changed everything, I think our generation take a lot of things for granted. You always think they are forever. Who really cares about the primary sector? Who really cares about, the food? So sometimes this kind of bottom-up approach, which is the one who, for the smart specialization, should be also guided and lead for a kind of, directionality on the priorities. That there's still another process, for these common goals, but there should be in place a process to do so. And probably we need to really act at both levels.
Thank you. And if I could just sort of jump in here with a question that's come from our audience, which really links to what you were just saying. And it's really, I think, to you, Deputy Prime Minister, from Mario Lelovsky from Slovakia, who says, are you considering or have you considered adapting smart specialization strategies to challenges like COVID, telemed, for example, and war? Talks about data protection, labor market change, particularly in the first-line countries. Going back to our conversation of the last session, how do you see the impact of COVID, of Ukraine, on what you've been doing till now? Will it change things?
Of course. I think that COVID and war push us to
reprioritize.
Yes, exactly.
Horrible word.
So we will update our partnership agreement to invest more in green transition, which suddenly for Slovakia with war became a vital question, because as you know, we are 100% dependent on the Russian gas, and we are very much dependent on the Russian oil. So we really need now the green transition. Between it was buzzword. Yes, of course, we like green transition, it's important and so on, but now it's vital. So really we need to invest. So energy efficiency, energy solution, a replacement of gas heating by a greener and alternative type of infrastructure. So really for Slovakia it became a vital question. So this is war. And COVID, I think this was the common response in the European Union. Suddenly it was a big boost to our research company, because we saw that we need to do things home here in the European Union. You remember that at the very beginning, as a lot of companies produced in China or in Asia, we didn't have the material we needed here at home. So it was really a wake-up call for the European Union that we need to have the critical infrastructure, critical firms here in the European Union, and also the research. So
and Antti, same question really to you in terms of the priorities and the work you're doing, and how this clear focus and linking it to the recovery and the new funding available. I think it was Stefano said it's a great opportunity. We're having next generation EU money. This focus on the twin transitions as the way to recovery, and the way, as the Deputy Prime Minister was just saying, it was something we needed to do, but it felt long term. Now it feels like now. Is that changing your agenda, your members' agenda?
So, to a large extent, we have been working on green transition and twin transition or digital transition already for a long time. So in that sense, then, that I think we all have seen a sort of a boost of course, in those areas, but also kind of like the good news is that the universities and RTOs have been exactly working on those areas, because obviously it has been seen for a long time that we need renewable energy, we need new types of materials and these kinds of things. I think that we have all gotten a wake-up call on resilience, because nobody predicted that the pandemic would come, and then we scrambled. Nobody believed that there would be again major war in Europe, and now we are scrambling on that one. So Lord knows that what will be the third thing that comes after that, and the fourth and the fifth. So in that sense then, that the importance on this also when we're talking about strategic autonomy and resilience is perhaps it's more about kind of like the how to raise the flexibility and ability to react quickly, because we always prepare for the last crisis. So and we can't prepare for every possible crisis. But if we are really investing into our competencies, into the strength of the economy in Europe, the education and these things, then we can weather any kind of storm and react. And that's resilience to me as well.
Thank you. Christina, I want to come to you on this point. We'll come to processes in a minute because they're important. And if anyone wants to share an experience or a thought, you don't have to ask a question on the effectiveness of smart specialization strategies in your region. We'll come to that in a moment. I see a hand raised already. Hopefully we can get a mic ready. But Christina, I'm just thinking here, obviously smart specialization is about saying, what are our strengths? What assets do we have? What resources do we have? Where can we really get a competitive edge? But that agenda, do you think that agenda is changing because of particularly this resilience point that Antti just made?
It really changed, and it's changing a lot and very quickly. You mentioned when talking about the strengths, what are our resources, what are competitive? Competitive is the reason. A lot of rules really, care about competition, about the competition in the global system. And the rules were created for a system where competition was the rule. But now, no, there's another strategy behind, because we need to be green. And to be green, there's some investment we can do. But the companies, the SMEs, the large companies, even the startups are trapped into some rules who are not created to really make the transition, but to be competitive. Yeah. So if they invest, they lose competitiveness. So in the short term, in the medium term, they are not competitive. But we need, they are making these transitions.
Like a catch-22.
Yes, yeah. So we are trapped in a kind of rules and regulation who are not created for the moment we are living. That's the real truth. That's what you have when you are, on the ground, on the practitioners. So if we all agree that the transition is needed, both for digital, both for green, both for energy, we need to create different rules for the people who are now fighting every day, trying to make this transition. So I think one of the points to really arrive to these, global strategies and global aims, which now this sense of urgency is now even more than it was in the past, is we need to change the rules. That's all.
I'll give you a chance to react to that in a minute. But there was an intervention. You have a mic? Yeah. Please introduce yourself, sir. Your mic is not working. Can we just see if we can get some volume on that? Try again. Don't fiddle with it. I think it may not. No, it was.
Hello.
There we are. It's working now. Great.
My name is Odd Godal. I'm Councillor for Regional Affairs at the Mission of Norway to the European Union. And there's a lot of talk about resilience, but it would be, the content of resilience is still a bit unclear. One sometimes tries to connect it to some form of autonomy, but that seems to be cutting oneself off or protecting oneself. But on the other hand, trade contacts have been great creators of wealth and lifted millions of people out of poverty, including here in Europe. So I just sort of wonder how we should understand resilience.
Thank you very much. While we're out with the mic, are there any others from the room? Let's come back on that point, and I'm just having a look to see if, no, we'll come back on that, it's a different issue entirely. Resilience, what does it really mean? Antti, I think you raised this point first. What are we talking about?
So first of all, I have to agree with the person who asked the question that sort of if we target with autonomy that we cut ourselves out of the world and just be an island here, then that's not a successful strategy or even a desirable goal. But I think that that's why, at least personally, I like very much talking about both resilience but also European competitiveness, because predicting the future is really difficult. But if we know that we have world-class skills, we are competitive, and I don't mean cost competitiveness, but sort of competitiveness in that we create the best products and services, and our economic competitiveness as a broad is high, then we can respond then to whatever happens in the best possible way. But I think that we need to be active members of the world and contribute positively there as well. But maybe it's a sort of a call to action that we need, that we sort of a little bit wake up from our slumber that we've been having.
Did you want to also react on that point?
Yes, of course. It's important that EU is competitive in the world. I looked up, for example, the number of unicorns, because you said that there is a lot of startup, but we really need to scale them up, yes, for European and then global level. So, for example, for the period 2008-2017, only 24 new unicorn companies were created in the European Union. So technology firms valued over $1 billion of US dollar. But from 2018 to 2021, 105 new European firms crossed the $1 billion threshold. But still, it's only fraction within the world. So the highest number of unicorns is in the United States or China. So we really need to be competitive, and the way to be competitive is to invest.
So why are we not? Is it a lack of investment? Is it a lack of using smart specialization strategy in the right way? Why are we not creating the unicorns?
It's I think, of course, some of aspect, but the fragmentation of the market is so high, and it affects every level that you are thinking of. It affects regulations for the products, for the services. It affects the investment. It's so difficult to really create cross-border investment between the companies because, you know, of the situation. But it's also because of the customers that need to also be fragmentation. So I think the unlock the potential of, you know, the single market, the unique market is really the crucial for this. And of course the investment, of course the venture, developing more the ecosystem, developing, you know, the links between all the actors active in the ecosystem is also true. But it's also true that the ambition, the talent, so we don't need also only technology people with a lot of knowledge. We need to create a system where this knowledge is also transforming in opportunities, commercial opportunities, who make these people, these talent people, these startups growing and growing. Because I think the challenge now is not only a startup, but it's really scale up in order to really unlock this potential. But of course, in the end, there's also this changing of rules I mentioned before. It's because at the moment, with all this pandemic, with this war near the Europe, never thought the war really arrive here. It's like changing the things, because these people need to orient the talent to those areas who normal things are, taken for granted. It's like a smart specialization needs to be complete with a kind of directionality, and the investment need to do so is something that really break the rules, the rules who have now. Technological sovereignty is now an important thing. I'm, for example, evaluator of one of the flagship programs in the European Innovation Council, which is the one who really would like to identify those champions, those Europe champions, those future unicorns. And now in this period, the word technological sovereignty is important. It was not in the past, it was competitiveness, but now technological sovereignty. So little by little things are changing.
So we have talked about the impact of the green and digital focus on smart specialization. We haven't talked so much about what strategic autonomy, this whole debate that we had in Europe before Ukraine. It had already started, led by the French presidency, but now really coming to the fore as we see what is happening to the world. Do you think, Antti, that is going to change the focus of where your members work, where this ecosystem works? And then I want to come to what regional and administrative processes do we need, because it's a point you made at the beginning. But just on this question of, will this debate about strategic autonomy change the strategies?
Well, EU Chips Act is an example of how it has changed. And also then that there we also see that what it concretely means. It means investments and hard work. So it's also kind of like then that we get from a sort of a high policy jargon then into kind of like looking that it means a factory in Magdeburg and a lot of research being done in various parts of Europe, and all of that needs funding. So finally, the funding valves have opened up, and we've started to see then that the money is starting to pour into these areas. Because, for example, on the semiconductor side, we have been thinking for years that, okay, fine, we can buy them in the store, so kind of like, why bother? Now we realize that we want to be also in that business, and now we are investing.
And I wonder, Deputy Prime Minister, how you see the alignment between this growing emphasis on our strategic autonomy and the smart specialization strategies, and where the sweet spot is, where the smart specialization strategies contribute to the strategic autonomy, and we get a sort of, because there is a risk here that it's not coordinated, it's not coherent. How do you see the link between the two?
I agree that strategic autonomy, we need to increase investments and to pool talents. So not each member states are able to do the same thing. So we really need to divide tasks and see who is best in what. For example, in Slovakia, we will invest, I would say massively, in the supercomputer. And we have a Slovak inventor of chip, which is energy efficient, Mr. Danilák. So we will create the infrastructure for the chip. And the same for other domain. For example, we in Slovakia have the automotive. So we are the biggest producer of cars. And it's evident that we need to create, we need to invest in the next step, which is electric cars and batteries. So to analyze all life cycle of the batteries. So not only the produce batteries, but then the recycling of batteries, and also skills. So we need the huge, the reskilling people and the secondary education for skills. And I really appreciate also the European initiative in developing common curriculum for battery skills, so the battery alliance in the European Union. And I think that's also the role of the European Commission in coordinating and harnessing potential and networking between exchanging the experience between member states.
Absolutely. But we have an interesting paradox here. So strategic autonomy is first about identifying your weaknesses. Where are your dependencies? Where are we vulnerable at the moment? Because we don't have the manufacturing in Europe, and you mentioned the CHIPS Act as one of those. Smart specialization is about utilizing your strengths. But it seems to me we're saying, and what the Deputy Prime Minister is saying, and you, Christina, is in order to meet the strategic autonomy challenge, we need to do smart specialization at the member state level, right across Europe, and work out, as the Deputy Prime Minister was just saying, who's good at what and where. So it's actually, they are complementary, even though they're doing the opposite thing. One is about your strengths and one is about your weaknesses. How do you see that link developing? And do you think this has been thought through enough yet at EU level, the link between the strategic autonomy agenda and cohesion policy in other areas?
Yes, of course. Life is complex, isn't it? It's always complex, and it's being complicated more and more this time. Yeah, I don't have, let's say, a solution. I think always this kind of process of the dialogue, of the focus combined also with the identification of priorities, but especially to really form a cascade where all the priorities are shared by all the communities, by all the stakeholders. Because I see here that probably, let's give a very naive example. Probably here in the room there are a lot of Erasmus. Erasmus has made more for the EU identity, probably than the hundreds of treaties and laws. So we need to find something in practice. Something in practice will really create this kind of solidarity, de facto solidarity would create. And at the moment, I can see this solidarity between the networks, between the stable networks who have survived during the time and create those links between the stakeholders, between the region, and who have, you act as a kind of, rail ship through the talent, the energy, exchanging best practices, and this is key for the cohesion. And this is key also to see how people react to those challenges, not as an isolated way, but as a common way of coordinating things, coordinating strategies, which in the end, when you put it practice, is revealing as good or not.
I want to come back to some of the nuts and bolts issue. Let me just read out a comment from Matthias Kuhlmann, who says, please don't forget, unicorns are indicating rapid wins for investors. They're not necessarily good growth for society. So too much of a focus on unicorns, I think he's suggesting, might not be a good idea. I'm going to come back. There's a question about ownership of the strategy. I want to come back on that. But I want to come back to really where we started, because you talked about, in your Deputy Prime Minister, in your opening remarks, about the importance of the regional administrative process. And you said, what do we need? What's important here? The key question, in order to boost our innovation performance. What for you is key? Same question, Christina, you mentioned the entrepreneurial discovery process. What's important about that for you, Antti, in terms of really working with this ecosystem and really realizing the role of the regions in this? What's the key in process terms to this working? So I'm being really practical and nuts and bolts now. Christina, no, actually I'll come back to the Deputy Prime Minister first, because
I would like to go for the unicorns.
I think we go, and then you want to react on. I tell you what, react on the unicorns quickly. Go on, and then we'll come to this. Go on.
Yeah. Matthias, you're right. Who is Matthias?
I don't know whether he's here or not.
Matthias, you're right. I think to focus more the attention on the unicorns, it's really, more, it's a wrong focus. The kind of riches we have just, pushing these talent people, having technology-based companies, deep tech companies, even if they not arrive to the level of unicorns, we are creating something which is wonderful, which is for the regional development, for the innovation. You have ambassadors of innovation. You have good quality jobs in every territory. So, yeah, we cannot go maybe for unicorns, because it's also linked to our culture, our values, Yeah?
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's also the way we are here in Europe, which is absolutely different from the way we are in other places.
I think, Deputy Prime Minister, you want to react on that before we come to the process.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that they are important for national, I would say, proud and ecosystem. We have one unicorn. We are a small country, 5 million of inhabitants, and we have ESET, which is a top company in cybersecurity and internet security. And it was very important that we have a global firm which is successful, globally successful, and also it helps and support other small tech firms in Slovakia. For example, Slido, we are using, it is Slovak firm. But the primary stimulus was that, wow, in Slovakia we really have one great successful firm, which is ESET.
So it inspires others, it leads.
Exactly.
Antti, a word on this issue because it's generating lots of heated debate.
Well, as long as the cause and effect relationship goes in the right direction, so that if the entrepreneurs are trying to build the best product or service and really want to do something with a purpose, and it then
I'm looking for guidance on whether we need to do something.
I guess we leave.
I have no idea. Can we get some guidance very quickly on what we should do? Well, what's this expression? Always expect the unexpected. No, it's not that. I think in the absence of any guide... it stopped. So please don't leave us. Come back. As you say, somebody probably opened a door. Sorry, Antti, you were in mid-flow.
Yeah,
I think we're fine.
Yeah, I think I was there. That kind of like that. If the effect of doing the right things is then that they become a unicorn, then
Sorry, can I ask, because also people are listening online, so if there's a lot of hubbub in the room, they can't hear properly. Yeah, as you say, if it works, it works. I wanted to come to this issue of process and link into this. So what for you, Deputy Prime Minister, is the key in terms of those administrative processes and so on? And coming back to our discussion about partnership and the governance model of smart specialization, which Cristian Bușoi said at the beginning, he said was very much contributory to really an inclusive form of governance. And David Placenta here asks, ownership of the strategy by local communities, can we say this is actually what makes a strategy successful or not? Is that one of the key ingredients? What are the key ingredients? Same question to you all. For strategies that really work?
Yes, it's the ownership of the strategy by local communities. Without that, you will not do it. Because you can have university, you can have private sectors, but if you do not have ownership by all actors, then it will probably not be successful. And this was the case, for example, in Košice region, when really the common goal and the orientation towards the common goal was very important by all local actors. So in the innovation strategies, of course, there is a national innovation strategy, but then you need also to have in the regional investment packages really the pillar of innovation, which is agreed upon all regional stakeholders. Mm-hmm. So regional community, private sector, university, and the civil society within the region.
Thank you. And Antti, you said earlier that sharing the common goal, I think you called it the magical power that makes stuff happen. How do we get that right? What is the key to really getting it right?
I think it's also kind of like linked then that that there's high ambition level. At least if I kind of like look at this with the RTO lenses on, because it's if you have a really ambitious goal, what you're trying to achieve, either through the research or the business or what type of customer needs you're trying to fulfill, then that serves as a great common goal, and that's kind of like inspires also everybody to act, and also kind of like gives hope that, hey, if we can do this, something good will also come out of there. So in addition to the common goal, then that the ambition level is high.
And other key ingredients, I mean, are there, in terms of the administrative process, are there issues that regions need to address to make this really work?
Probably it's usually that the less there are processes, the better. So kind of like then that they also get to keep it lean and agile.
Christina, you mentioned earlier the entrepreneurial discovery process. Can you talk a little bit more about how that works, how it should work, and what the key ingredients are for it to be really effective?
Well, to build really the smart strategization, you need to have a lead partner, of course. Normally it's from the public sector, but then they create the methodologies, experience now. You have the proof to work in maybe groups. You have to, let's say, to engage different type of people with different profiles, technology centers, university practitioners, companies in different type of companies, universities and so on. And through this dialogue, you can, improve the level of knowledge you have from your own region. But then there's also the final process of filtering the information. And probably, the key is to filter all this information, making something, very useful, very meaningful, and not the myriad of cascade. But as I said before, I'm a practitioner. I really believe that, the key of the things and the success of things, it's more in the implementation. Sometimes we have this problem of, be extra diagnosis. It's the practitioner, is to have talent people also in the interface organization, providing quality support, but also ensuring, the equal and inclusive opportunity for everybody. In my field, for example, not giving all the opportunities to people who have, money, who have agenda, but really to be more inclusive in the way that the full opportunities are offered to talent people who have something to build.
Thank you. You wanted to come in?
Just a very quick comment, and people need to see the benefit of the innovation. And I will use the example of green transition. For example, in the regional strategies, of course, we would be happy if all buses were hydrogen buses, yeah? But you see that for €1 million, you can buy 3 diesel buses, 2 electric buses, and 1 hydrogen bus. So the regions just did not see the
economic logic.
Economic logic. Why should I buy 1 hydrogen bus if I can buy 3 diesel buses? So now, when we see that really the diesel can become a problem and it's really expensive, you see the price jumping high, then also the regional actors see the logic and benefit to invest in innovation and green transition. So each, I would say, policy incentives or innovation activities should, the regional actors really should see the concrete benefit.
And this is a key element of an effective smart specialization strategy. Any other thoughts? Can we bring a microphone down, or right down to the front here, if you would. Thank you so much. 3rd row in the middle. It's always someone who's sitting in the most inaccessible place. That's the golden rule. So please. You don't have to touch anything, just speak.
Really?
Yep.
Thank you very much. I'd like to have a cadence of words like you, but let's say you raised the most important question I heard in discussion. It was about why we have other regions. As me, I'm a president of most developed, non-developed region in Slovakia, near capital region. And this task is why we still are catch in procedure in the middle developed trap, or what should we do in a couple of years doing with this thing. And I heard from our Deputy Prime Minister that we have some kind of procedure like a triangle. It's a metaphor. And I think that only small kids and crisis will tell you the truth. And now, after 2 crises, I say about the COVID and now war, the truth is that we need much more going to the basis, looking for the policy making about the smart euro or smart specialization strategy, about the founding, about the capacity building, about the investigation to human resources and so on, that it's not about the only triangle, it can be like a hexagram or it can be much more like a building, and we have to go to basis. What is discussion, this kind of question is for me like a 10 years. And what is general ground about this? It's that when we develop something in Košice region, but Košice region is the best example of region to catch in transition.
Yep.
They have some kind of initiatives like IT, but as regional decision makers, we have to go to bases because we don't have infrastructure things like roads. We don't have water suppliers, and
I'm gonna have to ask you to be very brief now.
I'd like to find the answer, but when you raise it like this, it's very complex. You said life is complex, and we don't have. And what is the general challenge is trying in smarter Europe, in smart specialization strategy to answer, but we have to listen for the truth. What this crisis?
Thank you very much
for us.
Thank you for sharing.
Can I ask one
No, you have to
question?
stop now. Sorry, we're almost out of time, and I need to come back to the panel before we close.
Very simple question.
If it's 10 seconds, you can ask her a question.
10 seconds. Can you raise 3 best practices from your practical way when you mentioned that you are the what we share in Europe?
Okay.
Because you have experience in 35 countries, if I could remember. Thank you.
Quick ones, if you would.
Okay, very quick ones. For example, an open platform innovation between the corporates and the startups. The corporates give stable markets, but need innovation and enough flexibility who can be provided by the startup. So we have plenty of open innovation activities creating with these several. Of course, focus in, exchange of best practices, learning by doing yourself or others. Then you can also not be isolated, not start from zero in every practice. You can have some more experience. And finally is focus. Find people who have the same focus as you in the sector and try to create stable connection, stable networks, not, ad hoc initiatives who are really then blurring when.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So that's 3 best practices, bits of advice. I want to be even meaner now and ask each of you before we close. I'll start with you, Antti. I'll go to Christina, and I'd like to give the Deputy Prime Minister the last word. Of all the issues we've discussed over the last hour and a half, if you had to identify, I'm not sure whether we should call it a priority because you mentioned the hexagram, but a key next step, something as we go away from this year's Cohesion Forum, facing the challenges we do with COVID, with Ukraine, and those longer-term challenges, to ensure that we really do have a smarter Europe, where these strategies really deliver. What for you, of all the topics we've raised, is the most important issue to focus on? Same question to all 3 of you.
There would be 37 different things to raise, so I choose only one thing to raise. I think what we have learned during the pandemic and now during the war is that if we are working together as Europe, we do wonderful things and we can achieve a lot. So let's work more on that.
And collaborate more, work across borders, work together. Christina, your one thing. I know it's impossible. It's a very unfair question.
It's impossible, but as I confess practitioner, I would like to reinforce the intermedium, forces that make the strategies reality. it's not the point to really make very good strategies if you don't have the system and talent people within the system trying to implement this and trying to create all of this.
Thank you. Deputy Prime Minister, you have the last word.
Three next steps or three important things. So I think the first one would be explore more the strength that we have in European regions and European member states. I think what this means, it means more cooperating, more networking, more exchanging. The second one would be more stimulus for investment from private sector into innovation at regional level. And the third thing would be less bureaucracy at the European level, at the national level, at the regional level. So these would be my three most important things.
Thank you so much, and thank you for being so very concrete in your answers to those questions. That is all we have time for. Will you join me, those who are in the room, please, in thanking our panel very much indeed for a great discussion. Thank you in absentia to Cristian Bușoi and also to Stefano Bonaccini. That is all we have time for. It only remains for me to wish you all a very pleasant evening, and I look forward, I hope, to seeing you all in the morning, 9:25, for our opening plenary session of tomorrow's discussions. But have a great evening. Thank you very much indeed, both to you in the room and all of you watching us and joining us online. Bye-bye.